Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that's going to fundamentally shift how you look at your day-to-day finances. The source material we're diving into has this fascinating, honestly urgent premise. Building real wealth, it's not just about what you earn. It is entirely about what you keep. The author argues that if you're not paying close attention to where your money is actually going, you're basically just drifting, letting the system push you around. So we're going to look at exactly how to take control of this process using a highly structured approach. Now, you might be wondering, when most people think about what's destroying their ability to build wealth, they look at the big stuff, right? They think about that massive car payment sitting in the driveway or a huge looming mortgage. But the author introduces a really compelling Trojan horse concept here. They argue there's actually a completely silent leak draining your bank account right now, just sapping away your future millions before you even get a chance to invest them. It's not the massive purchases doing the real damage, it's something flying completely under the radar. Okay, let's dive into this. The source defines this phenomenon as consumer creep, which is the silent accumulation of recurring micro-expenses. The author points out that most people are, well, completely distracted, spending all their energy trying to find the next big win or the next crypto moonshot. And while they're looking up at the stars for that massive payday, consumer creep is quietly operating right at ground level, making sure they stay broke forever. It's this exact dynamic that the author claims keeps most would-be investors poor. Which brings us to Section 1, the silent wealth killer and the subscription trap. And this brilliantly illustrates the specific culprits. The source material treats these particular expenses not as harmless little conveniences, but as literal financial black holes. We're talking about Netflix and other streaming services, Spotify, that gym membership you haven't swiped since January, or hey, how about those premium photo editing apps you signed up for once just to edit a single picture and then completely forgot about? The author argues that most of us treat these $10 or $15 charges as flexible expenses. They seem totally harmless on the surface, but when we look at them collectively, a very different picture emerges. The author uses a really stark phrase to describe these small charges: death by 1,000 cuts. The real danger presented in the source material doesn't actually lie in the cost of a single streaming service. The danger is in the sheer volume of these seemingly small, flexible charges. Because they're so incredibly small, they totally evade our mental accounting. We don't notice them, and that is exactly why they're so lethal to our financial health over time. So to combat this, the source material establishes a brutally strict, completely binary rule. Here it is. If you haven't used a service in the last 30 days, it is a leak. Cut it immediately. There's no gray area here. There's no, oh, well, I might use it next month. The author's methodology dictates that if it hasn't provided value to you in the last month, it is an active drain on your future wealth, and it has to be stopped right now. Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds the leakage map audit. The author notes that this is the exact same proprietary logic used to build multi-million-dollar businesses, just scaled down to 3 steps for personal finance. Step 1, pull your bank statements for the last 90 days. You have to actually look at the hard data. Step 2, identify every single recurring payment. Go line by line, find absolutely anything that charges you automatically. And finally, Step 3, applying that strict rule we just talked about, cut anything unused in the last 30 days. The author is literally asking us to stop drifting and take active chronological control over our financial data through this exact 3-step audit. All right, Section 3, the true opportunity cost. To mathematically agitate the problem, let's set up the author's really powerful comparison here. Let's say you do the leakage map audit and you find just $100 a month in these trapped subscriptions. The author asks us to compare keeping that $100 tied up in unused apps versus redirecting that exact same $100 a month into an S&P 500 index fund. Now, the source notes the S&P 500 has a historical average return of around 10% per year. So what actually happens if you do this over a 30-year period? Now, what's really interesting here is the result. It is staggering, $226,000. According to the author's calculations, that little $100 a month, compounded at that 10% historical average over 30 years, turns into a massive $250,000 loss in potential wealth. The author stresses that you aren't just paying $10 for a streaming service, you are literally paying with your future. To really drive this home, the source material uses a brilliant, stark metaphor. On one side, leaving these subscriptions active is like cutting down your money tree to use as temporary firewood. Sure, you get a tiny bit of warmth right now from an app you barely use, but you absolutely destroy the asset. On the other side, auditing and investing that money is like letting that tree grow to provide you with lifelong passive income. These small subscriptions are quite literally costing you your future financial freedom. Moving on to Section 4, becoming stealth rich. Now, this requires a total mindset shift. The author contrasts 2 very different mentalities for us. The average consumer mentality is super focused on trying to impress people with the latest shiny services, apps, or subscriptions, even if they go entirely unused. But the stealth-rich mindset, as the author defines it, operates entirely differently. Real wealth isn't about showing off. Real wealth is about buying back your time so you never have to do things you don't want to do. The author presents this as the ultimate goal of the entire leakage map audit. To achieve that stealth-rich status, the source offers this directive. Be an analyst of your own life. Identify the bottlenecks that are holding you back. You have to actively interrogate your own habits. You can't simply let this system push you around anymore. By treating your personal finances with the exact same analytical rigor that a multi-million-dollar business would use, you stop the drift, and you take active control over where your money flows. So the crucial point comes down to this question: what is your freedom figure? The source material tells us that by ignoring consumer creep, most people guarantee they will never, ever hit their freedom figure, that specific, magical number that allows them to buy back their time completely. I want to leave you with this to reflect on. Does your daily spending, right down to the $10 photo app, actually align with your ultimate wealth goals? Are you building your money tree, or are you chopping it down for firewood? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a powerful new lens through which to view your finances. Catch you next time.